Alright guys, so by all means, you do not need to watch this video. This video is strictly for people who are still struggling with the solving quadratics, whether it's the quadratic formula, solving by square roots, or completing the square. This video is for you guys. I'm just going to kind of go through these questions, re-explaining how to do all of these things. On Monday, we're going to have a review sheet, and then on Tuesday, we're going to have a quiz. So it's definitely good if you guys know how to do these questions. So let's dive right in. The first ones are solved by quadratic formula. So we first need to make sure this is set equal to 0. It is already, so we don't need to move anything. But we do need to figure out that A is 1, B is 5, and C is negative 6. Once we know that, then we can plug it into our formula. So x is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. All of that divided by 2a. We do some simplifying. We keep the negative 5, so negative 5 plus or minus square root of 25 plus 24, negative 4 times 1 times negative 6 is positive 24, divided by 2. Continue to simplify. Negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 plus 24 is 49, all divided by 2. That gives us negative 5 plus or minus 7 divided by 2. And then from here, this is when we split it up into its two different cases, right? So we have negative 5 plus 7 divided by 2. That gives us a number. And then we have negative 5 minus 7 divided by 2 gives us a number. So negative 5 plus 7 would give us positive 2 divided by 2, which is 1. Negative 5 minus 7 is going to give us negative 12 divided by 2, which would give us negative 6. So the two answers for this question are 1 and negative 6. Okay, now that you've seen me do that one, I want you to... Actually, no, I'm just going to keep going. Alright, so number 2, quadratic formula. In this one, already set equal to 0, so we're good. A is going to be 2, B is going to be negative 5, and C is going to be 3. Plug it into the formula. X is equal to the opposite of b, so negative negative 5, plus or minus the square root of negative 5 squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. From here we need to simplify this, so that's going to be positive 5 because negative negative makes a positive, plus or minus the square root of 25, 4 times 2 gives us 8, 8 times 3 gives us negative 24, divided by 4. Continuing on, we have 5 plus or minus 25 minus 24 is just 1, divided by 4. So that gives us 5 plus or minus 1 divided by 4. Now we split it up. 5 plus 1 divided by 4 equals 5 minus 1 divided by 4 equals, so 5 plus 1 over 4 is 6/4, which we can keep it like that, or you could reduce it and make it, that is 3/2. And then we have 5 minus 1, which gives us 4 over 4, which is then just 1. So those would be the two answers to the second question. Alright, solving by square roots. So this one is usually going to be the fastest ones, which is kind of nice. So let's just go through these. So number 1, x squared is already by itself, so then we can just square root both sides. When we do that, we get x is equal to, now we put in this square root, so we have to put in a plus or minus, and then it's equal to 6, plus or minus 6. And that's it for that one. Number 2, we're going to subtract off 7 first. Now we get x squared is equal to 32 minus 7, gives us 25. Now because the x squared is by itself, we can use our square root. And then we would get x is equal to plus or minus 5. Number 3, so when we have parentheses like this to start the question, and we see it's a squared, and it's by itself, meaning there's nothing attached to it, then we can square root both sides. That's going to give us x minus 4 is equal to 10, because the square root of 100 is 10. And then because it was our own square root, we put a plus or minus. And then remember this one, now that there's two things left here and it's a plus or minus on the other side, we split it. So it's x minus 4 is equal to positive 10, and x minus 4 is equal to negative 10. We add 4 to both sides, we get x is equal to 14. We add 4 to both sides on the other one, and we get x is equal to -6. All right, continuing on. So always, we need to get the squared, whatever is squared by itself. So we add the 3 first, gives us 2x squared is equal to 8. Divide by 2 from both sides, gives us x squared is equal to 4. Square root both sides, we get x is equal to plus or minus 2. This one, it's almost by itself here, but we got to divide off the 2. When we do that, we get x minus 5 squared is equal to 20. Okay, so now the squared is by itself, so then we can put in our square root. We get x minus 5 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 20. Okay, and then we could just continue this. So we add the 5 to the other side. We get x is equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of 20, which this is a great answer, guys, because we can't simplify the square root of 20 into just one number. You could go even further by simplifying the square root of 20 if you remember how to do that. Remember, you split it into the square root of 4 and the square root of 5. But for just the sake of online learning, we're just going to be okay with that answer right there. Okay? And then the last one here, number 6, the first thing you need to do is subtract 4 from both sides. That gives us 3 times x minus 2 squared is equal to 48. Okay, now we're going to take 48 and we're going to divide it by 3. That'll get the 3 off of the front of that parentheses. That's going to leave us with x minus 2 squared. 48 divided by 3 is 16. And then we square root both sides, and we get x minus 2 is equal to plus or minus 4. And then this is another one where we have to split it. X minus 2 equals positive 4. X minus 2 equals negative 4. We add the 2 to both sides. X is equal to 6 on one side. We add the 2 to both sides on the other. We get x is equal to negative 2 on the other side. Okay? So those are all of our solving by square root methods. Okay? If you have any questions, always ask, guys. Always ask. So the last ones on this worksheet are completing the square questions. Completing the square, hopefully remember, definitely a more difficult idea, not the easiest. But let's dive right into it. The first thing you always have to do is rewrite the formula. So a squared minus 2a, and then we put a plus blank, minus blank, and then we put the minus 8 next to that, equal to 0. From here, what we did was we found the c value. To find the c value, you take b, so negative 2, and you cut it in half. That gives us negative 1. Once you cut it in half, you then square it, gives us positive 1. That tells us what fills in the gaps that we just added. So that was the first step. Second step is to simplify what we have here. So we have a squared minus 2a plus 1. So that's all of this part. Gets put right here. And then this part, the second part, is just going to go on the end by itself. So minus 9 is equal to 0. What I like to do, I like to add the 9 to the other side. That's going to give us a squared minus 2a plus 1 is equal to 9. Now that we have this part by itself, we can factor it. So remember, factoring, it looks like this, where we have a and a. What goes inside of the factor is this negative 1. Negative 1 goes here, and that's equal to 9. Then we simplify, so a minus 1 squared is equal to 9. And now you can see that it looks like one of our previous problems, where we can square root both sides. We get a minus 1 is equal to plus or minus 3. Split it into its two cases. A minus 1 equals positive 3. A minus 1 equals negative 3. Add 1 to both sides. A is equal to 4. Add 1 to both sides on the other one, and we get a is equal to negative 2. And that is how you do the completing the square method. Okay, let's run through one more of those completing the square problems, and then we'll be done with all of this worksheet. So, first step, break it up. Remember, we have to add in the blank, we have to subtract a blank, and then we add 20 to the end of that, equal to 0. Then we find the c value. Remember, you take the b value, 12 divided by 2, gives us 6, and then we square it, gives us 36, so 36 goes in our two blanks. from here, we simplify. So simplifying x squared plus 12x plus 36. Negative 36 plus 20 gives us negative 16 equal to 0. I like to add the 16 over next. By all means, it's choice, but I like to add it. X squared plus 12x plus 36 is equal to 16. And then from here, what we need to do, guys, is we're factoring this. So we factor into x, and then always, 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 what goes in these parts is whatever our b value divided by 2 is. So positive 6. And then to finish this question, we simplify. So x plus 6 squared is equal to 16. Square root both sides. X plus 6 is equal to plus or minus 4. And then we break it up into its two parts like always. So x plus 6 is equal to positive 4. X plus 6 is equal to negative 4. Subtract 6 from both sides, we get x is negative 2. Subtract 6 from both sides, and we get x is equal to negative 10. All right, so that was just kind of a quick review of everything we've done over the past week. As always, guys, if you have questions on any of this stuff, please ask me. I'm always in office hours from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Just click the Zoom link in the quick e-learning quick tips. That's where my Zoom link is, so you can get into the meetings whenever you need to. Yeah, anyway, I hope you guys have a great weekend.